Trump calls Harvard a joke and accuses it of promoting hate and stupidity. Donald Trump intensified his criticism of Harvard University on Wednesday, following the school's refusal to comply with his proposed reforms. Harvard is a joke, teaches hate and stupidity, and should no longer receive federal funds, Trump posted on Truth Social. He also argued that the institution no longer deserves a place among the world's top universities, claiming Harvard has been hiring almost all woke, radical left, idiots and bird brains. Trump has accused Harvard and other top-tier American universities of advancing a leftist agenda and tolerating anti-Semitism on campus. And like other schools facing similar pressure, Harvard has not adopted Trump's proposed changes to hiring and admissions practices. He has also called for an end to diversity, equity, and inclusion day programs. In retaliation, the Trump administration froze $2 billion in federal funding linked to grants and contracts at Harvard. On Tuesday, Trump warned that the university's tax-exempt status may also be at risk.
Kinu eyes new Hudson Bay port to boost European trade amid U.S. uncertainty. Manitoba Premier Wab Kinew signaled Tuesday that his government is open to pursuing a second port on Hudson Bay to enhance trade with Europe, particularly in light of ongoing U.S. trade tensions. It marked the strongest indication yet that the NDP government, elected in 2023, is considering long-term expansion of shipping capacity beyond the current port of Churchill, which operates only in summer and supports a local economy heavily reliant on ecotourism. I would say post-Trump we're open to that and to all options, Kinew told reporters after meeting with EU representatives and officials from 18 member countries. A balancing consideration between growing our economy by accessing tide water in Manitoba while protecting our environment, belugas, polar bears, is super important to get right. He added, maybe looking at other port opportunities is part of how we sort out that balancing act in Manitoba. The EU delegation's Prairie Tour aims to strengthen ties around trade and culture. Kinew used the meeting to promote Manitoba as a strategic hub for trade in agriculture, energy, and critical minerals, especially via Hudson Bay and Arctic shipping routes. Genevieve Tuts, the EU's ambassador to Canada, pointed to areas ripe for collaboration. We want to focus on energy, clean energy, and you have high-level standards, she said, referencing Manitoba's hydroelectric power. She also noted interest in raw materials essential to digital infrastructure, as well as economic cooperation with indigenous communities and biotech development. A second Hudson Bay port, long discussed as a possibility near the Nelson River south of Churchill, has faced skepticism over cost, logistics, and environmental risks. Still, the idea gained new traction when the previous progressive conservative government pledged $6.7 million for a feasibility study on the Nistanen utility corridor. The proposal involves moving resources like bitumen and potash from Alberta to the Nelson River via rail or pipeline. Supporters argue Port Nelson could accommodate larger vessels and extend the shipping season, though the project would demand major investment in a remote area. Kinew suggested the global shift toward trade diversification may revive interest in such ventures. What Manitoba brings to the table is low-carbon electricity, tide water, and a government that is serious about working well with Indigenous nations, he said. If businesses, whether in the EU or in other parts of Canada, want to come here, I would welcome investment where they bring the capital.
Trump and his cabinet clashed with CNN journalist Caitlin Collins. During a tense media exchange in the Oval Office, Donald Trump and members of his cabinet lashed out at CNN's Caitlin Collins after she questioned the wrongful deportation of Kilmer Abrego Garcia to El Salvador. Collins, CNN's chief White House correspondent, asked whether Garcia could be brought back to the U.S. during a press event with Trump and El Salvador's President Nayib Bukele on Monday, April 14. Bukele dismissed the idea as preposterous, labeling Garcia a terrorist. Trump, visibly irritated, took aim at Collins, calling her a very low-rated anchor and snapping, "Why do you go over and over? That's why nobody watches you. You've lost your credibility."
If you like this news and want more updates relating to this, please like, share, and subscribe.
Canadian university teachers warned against U.S. travel amid political concerns. The Canadian Association of University Teachers (CAUT) has issued a strong advisory urging its members to avoid non-essential travel to the United States. citing the political landscape under President Donald Trump's administration and recent incidents at the border. David Robinson, CAUT's executive director, emphasized the gravity of the situation in a Tuesday interview, stating it's clear there's been heightened scrutiny of people entering the United States and a heightened kind of political screening of people entering the country. This is the first such warning CAUT has issued in Robinson's 11 years with the organization. The advisory is particularly directed at academics from countries with strained relations with the U.S., those who have publicly criticized the Trump administration, and individuals whose identities or research might be seen as contentious. The warning singles out scholars who identify as transgender or conduct research that may conflict with the views of the U.S. government. Recent headlines have included cases such as Canadian Jasmine Mooney, who, along with two German tourists and a Welsh backpacker, was reportedly detained for over a week. These instances have fueled growing concern among Canadian academics. The federal government has also updated its travel advisory, alerting Canadians to the risk of additional scrutiny or even detention at the border. CAUT advises academics to be cautious with the information stored on their electronic devices. Robinson noted that legal consultations confirmed the risk of confidential research being compromised during U.S. border searches. The impact on cross-border traffic is already evident. According to U.S. Customs and Border Protection, entries from Canada dropped by approximately 30% in March compared to the same period the previous year, roughly 864,000 fewer travelers. Despite these concerns, Mike Niezgoda, a spokesperson for U.S. Customs and Border Protection in New York, downplayed any major changes. It's business as usual here, he told the Canadian press. There's no difference ... As long as you've got your documents, you're fine. Still, Robinson maintained that CAUT's advisory will remain in effect until we see the end of political screening and there is more respect for confidential information on electronic devices.
Automakers that continue production in Canada will receive an exemption from Ottawa's retaliatory tariffs, introduced after U.S. President Donald Trump imposed steep duties on imported vehicles. However, the number of tariff-free vehicles a company can import will drop if it reduces investment or production in Canada. Prime Minister Mark Carney, speaking in Saint-Eustache, stated, "The North American automobile sector is the most integrated industrial manufacturing sector in the world, particularly the Canadian-U.S. auto sector." He said Trump's tariffs appear to target that integration. Finance Minister François-Philippe Champagne announced that Canadian manufacturers can import a limited number of U.S.-built vehicles if they comply with the Canada-U.S.-Mexico Agreement CUSMA without facing Canada's countermeasure tariffs. Trump's 25% tariff on imported vehicles, announced April 3rd, included a partial exemption for CUSMA-built vehicles. Ottawa responded with matching tariffs on U.S. vehicles entering Canada. Carney said he doesn't expect the planned May 3rd tariffs on auto parts to proceed and noted ongoing talks with global automaker CEOs. Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre criticized Trump's move, saying, "Trump deserves nothing but condemnation for the unfair targeting of Canada." NDP leader Jagmeet Singh said Canada must fight the tariffs and make sure that we can strengthen our automobile sector. The Canadian and U.S. auto sectors have been closely linked since the 1965 Auto Pact. Mexico joined with an AFTA in the 1990s. Later replaced by CUSMA under Trump, Honda Canada confirmed its Alliston and plant will remain at full capacity, denying any production shift. The Detroit Three, Ford, GM, and Stellantis have pushed for tariff delays. Trump hinted at a pause to give companies a little bit of time to shift operations. Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt said Trump has flexibility and still believes Canadians would benefit greatly from becoming the 51st state. Champagne also announced a 6-month tariff holiday on certain U.S. goods used in Canadian manufacturing and essential sectors. A loan program for large businesses is now open. A Ledger poll found 87% of Canadians believe tariffs will hurt their finances, and 78% are concerned about stock market volatility, higher than their American counterparts.